I've got to say, there's a stir in this conference hall, and it's not caused by me, it's caused by the presence at the Tory party conference, I think probably for the first time in almost 30 years, of our very own Nigel Farage. Nigel.
Good morning.
Good morning, and very good to have you here. There's a huge crowd formed around here because people want to see you, they want to hear what you've got to say, as we all do. When were you last at a Tory conference?
Late 80s.
Right.
Late 80s. I think it was Bournemouth.
So Mrs Thatcher in...
Yeah, no, she was the Prime Minister, yeah. And I used to come in those days to conferences. They were always held at the seaside. They were always enormous fun.
Yeah.
Interestingly, in those days, there were thousands of door knockers, leaflet deliverers. This has a much more, whilst the activists are here, there's a much more corporate feel, I think, to the conference these days.
So you're here for the first time since perhaps 1987, 1988.
Yeah.
My first question is, are you had to rejoin the Conservative Party?
No.
Would you like to share it with TV News viewers and listeners?
I think that my presence here highlights the divisions within the party.
Right.
And the battle that will happen, I suspect, after the next general election. I went to the CDO dinner last night.
Conservative Democratic Organisation.
And these are rebellious group of Tories who feel the party's become unconservative, undemocratic. They're not really getting a choice to choose their own MPs as candidates, things like that. And, I see what they're saying. I see what Suella Braverman's saying. And I do see, in some parts of the Conservative Party, things that I've campaigned on for 10 or 15 years now becoming mainstream. Mainstream in a wing of the party, but not in the party as a whole. And frankly, let's face it. After 13 years, this is not a Conservative party, it's a Social Democrat party. It's high tax, big state, high spend, open door immigration on the most extraordinary historic scale. And if they're not going to rediscover some sense of being a national party that believes in its people, they'll be out of office for 10 or 15 years.
And it's interesting, at the Conservative dinner last night you were at, you were referred to by Dame Priti Patel, who was making, if ever I've heard, a leadership campaign speech. And even though there's no vacancy currently, you stood up. The applause for you was deafening. The Tory party faithful still see you as their lost leader.
They do. It's a really funny one. Andrew, I never shifted. My political opinions never went right or left. I didn't change from 1990. It's the party that's changed radically over these last 3 decades. And look at the polling in the Sunday Times yesterday.
Yeah.
Fascinating polling showing on immigration issues, on the threats that it can pose, that 60 to 65% of the country agree with the view that I have put out there for years and been abused for, that most MPs are frightened to talk about. This is where the Conservative Party needs to go after it loses the next election, or it will get replaced. You
were mocked years ago when you went to the White Cliffs of Dover and talked about the horrors of what was coming across the channel. Now that everybody is talking about that, is now one of Rishi's 5 pledges, which he's not doing very well on. As the Foreign Secretary was talking about their policy on Stop the Boats, 500-600 people crossed the channel yesterday. You have an opportunity here to tell us how you would stop the boats and fix the borders.
Well, I always said from day one, we'd never stop this as members of the ECHR. As all the while, the British judges, or the lefty lawyers, as Boris used to call them, but all the while they've got ECHR to lean on, we will never solve it. So that nut absolutely has to be cracked. And beyond that, operationally, we will need to send boats back to France. Quite simple. It'll cause a huge diplomatic incident.
Oh, good.
Do you know what? Within a fortnight, the boats will stop coming.
All right, this is Nigel Farage. Are you doing your show here tonight?
I am, absolutely.
Any interesting guests?
Lord Frost, of course, will be on.
Who will be...
Miriam Cates will be on.
He was, of course, he was the Brexit Secretary.
Well, he
negotiated the Brexit deal.
He negotiated it, and he now fears it's all about to be lost. So he's going to be a good guest.
And Miriam Cates, as some people see, as the next Tory leader, some people see.
If she holds her seat at the next election.
And, of course, this man could be Tory leader if he was a Tory MP, but I don't think he wants to go there. Nigel Farage will be with you here at...
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock here, live at the Manchester Tory Party Conference.